Hey all, today we're back at it with our Palletizing Robot project, where we're going to show a little bit of how we automate the risk assessment procedure as we iterate through the design of this robot. So if you remember, when we created this project, we went through this whole process where we specified tasks that we're going to use to drive the risk assessment. We specify, for example, the robot picks and places an object, or technician replaces robot end effector, and we use that to reference the standards to identify how to craft relevant hazards. So you can see the tasks that we started with. This is all I entered when I generated this project. And we inferred these hazards, things like the robotic movement hazard due to unintended movement, a very common hazard discussed in 13849 and 10218, the two standards referenced in this project. And we also generated some control measures. For example, right here, a lockout tagout mechanism that is needed in the area surrounding the robot, or a safety rated monitored stop that might be required to prevent collisions within a safety zone. So what all this allows us to do is it allows us, for example, to start crafting an explicitly linked risk assessment. So for example, we're able to come in here and define different formulas we want to compute on our hazards to determine their current risk levels. So you can see how we do this using the risk graph for 13849. And you also see how we can do this for a totally different risk graph if we also want to compute the risk level according to ANSI RIA R15.306. And we can see all of that in line in the same project. Now, the fun thing is you can scroll over and you can start viewing all those risk assessments for these particular hazards. So for example, for this robotic movement hazard, you can see that we inferred to begin with that our severity, probability of avoidance, frequency of exposure are all the worst case possible, which means that we have a particularly high level of risk, which means we need really impactful control measures. So you can see, for example, here that we have discussion of a achievement of PLB with our lockout tagout procedure and PLE with our robot safety zone management. And so we would assume that with this generated residual risk assessment, we have some better properties in place. And you can see, for example, that we do say that we come down to, for example, a risk level of D, because the probability of avoidance is decreased. But there's some other things we might want to do. For example, we might want to view the reasoning for why severity is so high after control measures. That seems wrong. So let's come back in here and we can look at this justification and we can say, well, after the control measures we discussed, the residual severity actually seems like it should be lower because there is also discussion of the worker in the safety zone always wearing a magnetic force field. And that's the kind of thing that definitely should decrease severity. So when we click save, we trigger this impact analysis that tells us all of the control measures that are affected. And once we confirm, we'll go and rerun that risk assessment. So you can see that here once we refresh that for this robotic movement hazard, now our residual severity stuck at S2. Well, that might tell us something about what we actually learned about that particular justification. But you can see that anyways, the residual risk level is down to D. We're making progress. Now you can also see that we started calculating the severity, exposure, and avoidance per R15.306, and that puts our current risk level as high. You can see that we're missing some of that information to perform the same computation for other properties. So we can do that by clicking this nice star here. So when we do, it auto-populates the categories and guidance that we've used in the past, and we can run inference and view that same calculation right in line here. So again, in this case, this ROA maintenance movement hazard does seem to be medium severity according to 13306, and we have some justification right here. So we can assign that and have it stored for posterity and used to compute the full risk assessment. All right, that's it. Thanks for taking a look, and feel free to log in and check this all out.